Welcome to the latest edition of the Tines Lookback, our quarterly product recap. I'm Hannah, Tines Product Marketing Manager, and today we're going to cover some of the cool features our team produced in the last 3 months. For all the latest product updates, be sure to keep an eye on our What's New page as we're constantly adding new features there. Now, let's hop into the discussion. All right, we are joined by Emma Mulligan, one of the designers on the team. Welcome, Emma. We're going to talk about change control. So, Emma, let's get started.
So we have made a bit of an update overall to how our change control reviewing process works. So this has come from previously users used to go in and the way that they would review changes is through JSON, which had a couple of different challenges. One of the main one was it's quite difficult to review exactly what has changed when reviewing it in JSON format. And then visually, it was quite hard to see exactly what has changed between the live and the test version of the story. So we feel like it needed more of a visual representation of exactly what has changed between the live and test version, just to kind of make sure that all users were easily able to review changes within change control. So with that in mind, this is just a really simple story. Simple Weather API is just checking what the weather forecast is, and then it's just sending an email update with what that weather is for that location. So at the minute, we're in the test version, no changes have been made, so the visual diff is empty. So let's just make a really simple change to this. And Hannah will add you in. We'll add you in as a recipient here. So now an update has been made to the test version of the story. Once we select to view changes, it will open up our visual diff. I will be able to see now that an update has been made to the send email action. So on the left-hand side, we have our live version of the story. So this is the previous version that there is live at the minute. And then next to that is the test version. So this is the version that the user is just after making the change to. And then over on the right, we have our changes panel. So this will list all of the actions that have been updated within the test version. Once they scroll down, they'll see highlighted between the live version and test version exactly what has happened. So we can see that the recipient's properties were updated, and in the test version, the Hannah has been added as an email address to the recipients. So let's go back and add a few actions just to kind of see what happens then. And let's even link this maybe. So we can see now the visual diff, it's a little bit more busier. There's a lot more going on. On the left-hand side, we have more actions because more updates and more things have changed within the test version. And for the trigger action, we added a link from that to the get weather today action. So there is a nested change within that, which is actually that link from the get weather to the trigger action. And because it's related to both actions, that linked nested layer will appear in both the get weather and the trigger action. I'm going to just send these for requests. The request flow works kind of similar to how it did previously, where the user can request review, it gets approved, and then it gets pushed live. So we're after just sending them and pushing them live. So now there's no changes. So if, for example, an action was deleted within the visual diff, it will only appear in the live version on the left-hand side because it's no longer in that test version. And one thing that we learned, and we have added it back in, was the change attribution. So originally we hadn't included that in when it went live, and then we heard a lot more feedback from customers that they needed to see that change attribution. So we've added that back in recently. So we're further focusing on enhancing this and making it a lot more easier for users to review changes. But since it's gone live, I think people are happy to be more visually looking at it rather than just focusing on JSON format. But I will say that we are going to continue to enhance and improve this.
Always looking for areas to grow. And this is really cool to see, Emma. I love the visual aspect. It looks very clean. But with that, thank you so much for walking us through change control.
Great. Thanks for having me.
We are here with Stephen McLean, one of our engineers on the team. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. I'm going to talk about some of the changes we've made to pages over the last few months. We had lots of feedback about pages in general. The main one really was that pages are super powerful, but not easy to work with if you have complex pages that maybe have lots of different questions that aren't always applicable. So you can see in the page I've got up, it's sort of a typical like onboarding page that maybe somebody from IT might use to onboard somebody to a company. And there's different parts of it that don't always apply depending on what you're trying to do. So if I don't choose that this person needs a laptop, for example, then this question sort of doesn't really make sense. And that was something that you couldn't really do with pages a few months ago, was to show and hide things depending on your choices.
Yeah, do you want to jump in and talk about how you guys went about building this?
Yeah, we kept it, I guess, consistent with the way things worked for pages already, so I can show it here. So let's fix, I guess, some of these problems that this page has. This laptop question, for example, if I only want to show it if we've actually chosen to say send this person a laptop. So we added in this new show hide conditionally toggle to all the elements on the page. So if I tick this guy, you can see you get some options for how this element should behave. So I really only want this one to show if I've chosen the laptop option. So I can say show this element when these conditions match, and you can add multiple conditions. But for this one, I'm just going to add one condition, choose my field. And then you can see that the options that we get here match the field that I just chose. So if I say equipment is equal to laptop, or maybe we'll make it contains. So now if I choose any of these options, including laptop, this question will only show up. Super helpful. And I guess it means that the person using this page doesn't have to worry about all these questions that are kind of redundant. So you can see if I choose like headphones, keyboard, that question doesn't show up. And as soon as I choose laptop, then like this question makes sense now that I've chosen that.
Yeah, it just really allows that freedom and customization to fit your needs when it comes to building pages and apps. Thank you for hopping on and walking us through this. This was a great overview for pages.
Thank you.
Great. We are now joined by Anna Dowling, one of the engineers on the team. Welcome, Anna. We're going to be talking about working with arrays and Tines stories. So, Anna, do you want to give us like a quick overview and kind of jump into the problem your team was trying to solve here?
Yeah, absolutely. Previously, working with arrays or lists in Tines stories was a multi-step configuration. So you'd have to configure an explode to iterate over each item within your array. So using the explode mode, transform your data, and then remember to configure an implode in order to process the transformed array. And with that, there's a number of different configuration paths you'd have to pass, providing the GUID and the size. So we had feedback that users were looking for a more simplified way of working with arrays that involved less actions and was just an easier learning curve for our story builders. So what we have introduced is the send to story action as well as the group actions now support working with arrays directly using the loop option. As you can see here on both the send to story and the group action, we've got this loop option configured. So how you would add this is via the options menu. You can search for loop. Users also have the option to run their loop in parallel, which gives slightly better performance. So by default, their loops are run in serial, which provides event ordering parity with the indexes of their array, so the order of their list. However, if they run in parallel, the events are not guaranteed in order, but they do receive better performance for processing. So I'm just going to add my loop option here. And then I'll just simply pass the path to my array that I've configured. So this is just a list of 1 through 10. And the other thing to configure is passing the loop formula to iterate over the values in the array. And there's an added bonus here of a user can do some pre-processing on the format of the input events here. So if they want to transform any data that they're sending into their inner story or the input event for their groups. So I'm simply going to run this then. And you can see now we get in what we used to refer to as our implode event. So this is all automatically configured, a lot less actions and a lot more streamlined. So we're hoping that this improves readability for the users, makes it a bit easier to work with their lists, and also isolates the transformation into the send to story, inner story, or into the group as well. So as you can see here too, we output events for each index in that array. And these are in order because it's done in serial, but they could also be processed in parallel. So yeah, that is the improvements and new features that we've added for working with arrays within Sent Story and groups. And what we think we've achieved is simplifying the process of handling arrays, reducing the kind of cognitive load on the user when they're configuring these within stories. And as well as that, we're hoping that this will reduce the number of actions needed within a story for users to work with arrays. And yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Here we have Yannick Gloster, one of the engineers on the team. Welcome, Yannick. We're going to be talking about AI and using your own AI model in Tines. Do you want to give us a quick overview for that and then jump right into the problem you guys were trying to solve here?
Yeah, so we had some self-hosted customers that wanted to use AI features, and we didn't have a way for them to be able to use that because of all of our cloud functions and building on top of AWS. And so we wanted to provide a way for them to be able to build there. We also had cloud customers that were already using AI within their own infrastructure and used AI through their own internal services, or had like pre-approved AI providers that their company felt comfortable with them using. And so they'll already have those like relationships and partnerships, and we wanted to essentially enable people to pick their own AI provider and not necessarily use the one that we already had built in. So it's really about giving that flexibility to our customers and enabling them to use AI in a way that works for them. So we essentially built the ability to bring your own AI model. So you can connect to Anthropic, OpenAI, or any OpenAI compatible API. And also, if you're on self-hosted, you're able to connect directly to AWS Bedrock as well. And you're able to configure just all of the different parameters, right? So you can configure the API key, the base URL, the headers, and the different like types of configurations. So, having a look here, you're able to pick your specific provider, select your API key, test to make sure that things are working correctly, add different headers depending on the type of configuration that you're using. And we really gave just generally a big overhaul to these AI settings, and we'll continue to add the different configurations, as they're necessary.
Yeah, I love the look and feel of this. And since this has been available, what's kind of like the feedback you've gotten from customers?
Yeah, so really the appreciation has been the flexibility, right? So some of our customers, have internal requirements in terms of the ability to use AI. So, they're managing sensitive data, and they trust a specific provider to be able to host and to use their data. And so without that, they actually weren't able to use any of AI features. So whether it was like Workbench or automatic transform, we've now essentially given them a whole host of features that, our customers on cloud that have been using it already love. And now they're able to experience that same thing. And so, they're able to use all those awesome features.
I can't wait to see what else we have going on down the road. But Yannick, thanks for hopping on and showing us this.
Cheers. Yeah, thank you very much.
And now we are joined by Nick Winiger, one of the product managers on the team. Welcome, Nick. We are going to be talking about cases for mobile. And do you want to give us a quick overview for that and then jump right into the problem you were trying to solve here?
Thank you, Hannah. Yes, I am Nick, one of the new PMs at Tines responsible for cases. I have some experience with case management myself, being a product manager. And in my experience, and from what I've learned from other folks, when an incident or a ticket is created, normally a link of sorts is sent out in a communication format, often over Slack or Teams or sometimes email. In my own experience, I'm not always at my computer. I do a lot of Slack on our phones, and I feel like with cases, it's no different. You do need the ability to facilitate, absorb, or interact with a case wherever you are, and regardless of whether you're in front of your desktop. And what I learned was our mobile experience around cases was just completely unusable. And so we bridged some of our interactive design principles and made cases optimized for your mobile experience. So if someone were to, in fact, get a link to a case, and I got one recently from Suspicious Activity from Matt Muller, who's our field CISO, and he's letting me know about a critical incident, and I presumably am not at my computer. And as I click into it, you can see cases is going to load in a very clean organized format where I can consume the description of the incident, understand its status, what criticality. If I need to reassign it, perhaps I have some inside information in terms of who this should go to, I can do so. I can consume a little bit more information with respect to the actual details of the case from a metadata or case field standpoint. I can actually interact with these fields and set them if they haven't been set. And I also am able to run a case action, which is our automation sort of response out of cases. I'm also able to see the timeline of the case, so I can understand what happened and when, and I can comment and say, this looks, bad, and send that, so I can immediately interact and communicate. If you really want to, you can use our cool send a workbench feature, which then will allow you to interact with the case and ask questions about it with an AI agent. So there's a lot of power here behind what is considered a relatively simple feature. And by doing so, we're now expanding who can use cases in what circumstances, and I believe really living up to the true nature of what case management and ticket management should be.
Have you seen anything from the field or learned anything, from our customers about this update?
Yeah, we got some feedback from one of our customers pretty quickly after we launched it and said, wow, this is something I didn't realize I needed until I did. And from what I understand, there was exactly as I described a situation where there was an incident, they got messaged a link and were able to access the case information quickly and facilitate, even though they weren't at home. And so definitely hearing more of that as it comes out. But nonetheless, just a neat feature that we had an opportunity to build that I thought would bring some value, and it looks like it has.
Awesome. Thank you, Nick. Appreciate you showing us and can't wait to see what else there is to come.
Thanks, Hannah.
And that's all we have. Thank you to our presenters for showing us the features they helped bring to life. We've got a lot more up our sleeves, so stay tuned for what we'll showcase next quarter.